The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story. Why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
What a day. What a day. The Texas Longhorns stole the show yesterday at SEC Media Days in Atlanta.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We have to talk about the mammoth recruiting day that Texas had. We did an emergency pod right after five-star linebacker Tyler Atkinson announced that he was committing to Texas on the Pat McAfee show. And we thought that was it. And hey, that would have been a good enough day, right? You get a five-star before lunch. You feel like you're set for the rest of the day. Hell, you feel like you're set for the rest of the week. But Texas wasn't full. Around dinner time last night, the Longhorns picked up another commitment. This one came from four-star defensive lineman James Johnson, who was previously committed to Georgia. Philadelphia. So on the same day that Texas landed the top-ranked player in the state of Georgia for the class of 2026, the Longhorns flipped one of the top-ranked players who was previously committed to the University of Georgia. And oh yeah, they did that in the state of Georgia on the same day that Georgia was here at SEC Media Days. Coincidence? I think not. What a calculated sequence of badassery from Steve Sarkisian yesterday. You talk about sending a message. It's exactly what Texas did to Georgia. And Kirby Smart was walking around with a scowl on his face all day yesterday because of, I think, what had happened on the recruiting trail. The Atkinson commitment, we touched on this yesterday, and made it back-to-back years that Texas has gone into the Peach State and stolen the top-ranked player in Georgia. Last year, it was Justice Terry, the five-star D lineman. Oh, by the way, Georgia offered both Justice Terry and Tyler Atkinson when they were in the 8th grade. These were guys that Georgia really wanted and guys that Georgia really wanted for a long time. And the Horns were able to swoop in and snag them both. With Justice Terry, it happened in December, right around National Signing Day. And with Tyler Atkinson, it happens here in the month of July. So, yeah, big-time message sent by Texas yesterday. And it almost feels unheard of, doesn't it? You think about how well Kirby Smart has recruited Georgia. And you think about how many great defensive players that he's been able to sign during his Georgia tenure. For two five-star defensive players in his own backyard to pick Texas, that is absolutely insane. If it's a quarterback, you would understand it, right? A guy leaving Texas to go play for Steve Sarkisian and his system, that makes a little more sense. But for defensive guys to leave Kirby Smart, to leave the state of Georgia, to come to the University of Texas, that's wild. And it's perhaps a sign of a changing of the guard in the SEC. And look, NIL definitely helps make that possible. Don't get it twisted. Now, I will say this, Georgia has money too. They currently have the second-ranked recruiting class in the nation for 2026. If you think all of those guys committed for their love of the school or the culture at Georgia, and I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona that I can sell you right now. NIL giveth, NIL taketh away. Recently, it hasn't felt like the NIL game has been on Texas's side. This time, I think it was, and it played a big part in stealing Justice Terry from the Peach State last year, and I think it played a big part in Texas picking up a commitment from the five-star linebacker Tyler Atkinson yesterday. Speaking of messages, this is Texas sending another message that it isn't scared to go deep into SEC territory and play ball with some of the best recruits in America and play ball against some of the toughest teams to recruit against in America. It's awesome what the Longhorns are doing. Again, something we talked about yesterday. This is not just a Texas thing. This is not just a regional thing. Steve Sarkisian feels like he can poach players he wants from all over the country. He's not worried about competition. He feels like he's going to be able to get the guys that he wants year in and year out. That's awesome if you're a Longhorn fan. I got a hunch you are if you've made it this far in today's episode. A little bit more on James Johnson. He's from the state of Florida. Again, was committed to Georgia since June, but plays his high school football in the Miami area. He is the top-ranked defensive lineman in the state of Florida in this cycle. He's the 69th ranked player overall. Very nice. A 5-star, according to the folks at Rivals, a 4-star on the composite ranking, 6'2", 6'3", about 285 pounds. I found this scouting report online for James Johnson. Quote, explosive defensive tackle with all the fixings to make a living up front. More of a one-gap player than he is a two-gap player at this stage, but has the mass to dock in the middle, added almost 25 pounds to a frame that stretches just over 6'2" between his sophomore and junior seasons, and he should be able to eventually carry 300 pounds or more. He owns some of the best throwing metrics in the Sunshine State for his class, and that lower body twitch constantly shows up on tape as he shoots out of his stance and is quick to put opponents on their heels. Raw upper body strength allows him to club his way around obstacles, while a near 82-inch wingspan makes it difficult for blockers to establish initial hand positioning. He projects as a potential difference maker at the point of attack for a college football playoff contender that can be stationed at different spots across the line, end quote. I know that's a lot there, but it's a lot of good. So I felt like it was all worth reading. That will play for Texas. And man, you think about Georgia and what Kirby Smart has built. You think about what Nick Saban had during his dynastic run at Alabama. Those teams were built from the trenches. Those teams all had dominant defensive lines. It feels like Georgia has had a first-round pick on the defensive line every year that Kirby Smart has been in Athens. It kind of felt the same way when Nick Saban was in Tuscaloosa. That is what Texas is trying to build. And that's a good thing, because look at what Georgia's been able to do under Kirby. Look what Alabama was able to do under Saban. We all want Texas to have that kind of success on the field in Austin. Hopefully it translates, but that's the recipe to win conference championships, to win national championships. You have to have those big bodies up front. You have to be able to win on both lines of scrimmage, and you are seeing Texas make a concerted effort to bring in defensive line talent. We saw it this offseason, 5 transfer portal additions on the defensive front. Heck, you saw it with the recruiting class of 2025, getting Justice Terry and Myron Charles and Josiah Sharma, 3 blue-chip guys, some of the best in the country. Stark's not hiding it. It is clear what he and this coaching staff are trying to build. And, man, look at what they've put together so far in 2026. They have 4 defensive linemen committed. And that's not including the 5-star edge rusher, Richard Wesley, who is also a part of this class. You've got Vodney Cleveland, the top-ranked D lineman from Alabama. Dylan Berryman, the 3rd-ranked D lineman from Louisiana. Corey Wells, the 3rd-ranked defensive lineman in the state of Mississippi. And then now James Johnson, the top-ranked defensive lineman from the Sunshine State. That will do. This is far and away the best defensive line class that anybody has right now in 2026. Texas is building a monster up front. And oh, by the way, the 5 transfer portal players they added, most of those guys have multiple years of eligibility. So you're going to have a lot of those guys beyond 2025. You're going to have the 2025 class going into year 2 next year. And then this talented group coming in as true freshmen in a year from now. Yeah, the present is bright, but the future incredibly bright for the Texas defensive line. And by the way, with the Atkinson commitment earlier in the day yesterday, Texas now has 3 players in the top 12 in the entire class committed. There's more than any other school. LSU, as a matter of fact, is the only team with 2 of the top 12 players committed. Texas has 3. So the Longhorns putting in work all over the country, but they're putting in a lot of work at the top of the recruiting rankings. And this class now ranks 7th in the nation. It was 13th at this time last week. Remember what I said? Basically did a whole episode on it. 3 little birds. That's the mindset you have to have with Texas recruiting. Don't worry about a thing, because every little thing is going to be all right. You believe me now? Texas isn't done. There may be some more very good news coming very soon. Trust in Sark, trust in his staff. They have proven time and time again that they know how to recruit at an elite level. Yesterday, they proved it again. What a day. Again, to do that in the state of Georgia, taking the number one player in the state and then another guy who was committed to Georgia, doing that on the same day when you are with Georgia at your conference's media days in Atlanta. Oh, man, it's a good villain arc right there by Texas. I'm telling you, calculated sequence of badassery, impressive stuff, and what a fun day yesterday was to be a Texas Longhorn fan.
Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Maybe the Cincinnati Bengals do. With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
So SEC Media Days coming to a close today.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
If before SEC Media Days, you were upset that Alabama didn't take potentially Ty Simpson or take Brian Williams, who we think is the best player on the team, or somebody maybe a little more dynamic than Tim Keenan, Caden Proctor, or Deontay Lawson. Surely you have learned by now, okay, these three guys represented Alabama really, really well. Tim Keenan, I think the way people view him was elevated immensely. I thought he was incredible. I really did.
Yeah, Tim Keenan is one of the best people on the team. I mean, everybody's got best players, and at Alabama, all the players are good. All the players that play on Saturdays, they're all good. Of course they are. Tim Keenan is a great person, regardless of whether he was playing football or doing anything else. He's one of the most charitable, spiritual people on this team. And he's really an inspiration, not a 5-star guy, not even a high 4-star guy, and injured badly during his senior year, had to fight through that in the early part of his career, buried down on the depth chart. Took a long time for him to climb to the top, and he did it wearing a smile. And one of the great stories on the team, Lawson, talk about a leader, he's captain last year, and captain, and a certain captain again. I would almost say he's the unquestioned single leader of the defense. The Mike linebacker makes the calls, veteran. He was mature when he showed up. He played early. I mean, this guy's had a lot of injury issues. The thing that's weird is all of a sudden he could be completely healthy and be fine because it's just ding after ding. It's never like, oh, I don't know if he's ever getting over that. It's just one new ding after another. I think it's just bad luck. Hopefully, if he plays an entire healthy season, there's no telling how good he could be, but he's unquestioned alpha of the defense in terms of a two-time captain. And Caden Proctor, another just fascinating story to come from Iowa and be so comfortable at Alabama. One of the most popular players on the team. He's got multiple best buddies on the team. Him and Wilkin Formby could basically film their own movie called Step Brothers. They could do the Step Brothers movie. I mean, they're
oh God, I'd love to see that.
That would be great. That'd be great.
My drum set? Did you take my drum set?
They're literally like that. They're besties for life. Formby and Proctor, and frankly, the real reason I think Proctor's at Alabama is Wilkin Formby, to be honest. But anyway, those three were fantastic. And next year, assuming they're back, and there's every reason to believe they might be, next year you'll see Ty Simpson and Ryan Williams, and they will be great. But this was Proctor's turn. It was Lawson's turn. It was Keenan's turn. And in terms of learning new things, I learned quite a bit. I watched a lot of the interviews with those three players, and you're able to learn some things about the team. I like some various answers that they all gave. My favorite answer all day was Dari Noka asking Caden Proctor, hey, paraphrasing what Dari asked him, hey, PFF, Pro Football Focus, says you're the number one offensive line in the country. What do you think about that? I think last year's group might have said, yeah, that's right. We're the best offensive line in the country. Cade Proctor said, oh, no. We've proven nothing. There's a lot of running and lifting left to do. There's a lot of work left to do. Come back at the end when they're getting out that Joe Moore Award and ask me if we were good. I love that answer. We got to prove it. Nothing's being given to us. A lot of buy-in, and with DeBoer, who I'd brag on the most. I watched last year, and I'm not saying he was deer in the headlights. He's definitely not. He's too mature and too veteran for that. But he is clearly more comfortable. I mean, comfortable is the word I would use. Clearly more comfortable in year two. The familiarity. I've said all along, one of our mantras here on Locked On Bama, for those that listen every day and have for months, one of our mantras has been, last year it really felt like Jalen Milroe's team, but this year it's Kalen DeBoer's team. I was never more apparent than when Kalen DeBoer was speaking to the media on behalf of the University of Alabama. This is Kalen DeBoer's football team. Last year, Kalen was coaching Nick's team. He was coaching Nick's team, inherited Nick's quarterback, and he coached last year's team for Nick. This is his team. Every player on the team has been recruited by DeBoer or has turned down multiple opportunities to hop in the portal, and they've chosen to play for Kalen DeBoer and his staff. That was just what balled out to me at SEC Media Days in terms of Alabama's day. Just, they're a team again. Last year, it was understandably disjointed.
The other thing, a couple of things I liked. I thought Kalen DeBoer did exactly what you and I wanted him to do. He was direct and boring. He basically said, hey, we fell short last year. I mean, people brought up Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. He's like, we didn't do well enough. We didn't meet our expectations. And, I appreciate that. A lot of times that is coach speak. But in this particular instance, I'm down with it because, frankly, I'm sort of glad that they're putting that behind them. Like, if he had gone into some long rant about how, well, if we had just done this and then done that, if we had, if we didn't have the same number on the punt return team, and if we had,
there were no excuses.
Forget the reasons it happened. It happened, and it shouldn't happen. And now that that's unacceptable, let's move forward. Because I think the other thing we can all get behind is, if this is not always apples to apples, but Nick Saban's first year, we lost to La Monroe. We should have beaten Mississippi State on the road, but guess what we did? We gave up like 100-yard interception return, and that turned the entire game around. And we lost a tough one to LSU. We went to Auburn and lost. I mean, we lost I think we won the bowl game. We won the bowl game, but regardless,
we did win the bowl game. We did win the bowl game. Did we beat Colorado?
It was Colorado that year, and the year before we lost to Oklahoma State when Andre Smith scored on a throwback to the tackle or whatever. But anyway,
Colorado, take that, Travis Hunter.
Yeah. By the way, did you see any of Shane Gillis last night?
I've seen clips. I didn't watch the ESPYs. I've seen some of his comedy clips, and boy, he
pushed the envelope.
He did. I was shocked because Disney can be kind of hesitant about that. It'll be interesting to see if Shane Gillis invited back. He's very funny. He's a funny guy. But boy, he stuck the fork in. Yeah, he stuck the fork in and twisted a little bit on some jokes.
Well, the ESPYs had gotten so PC and so it had turned into a big nothing. And so I think you needed somebody to come in there and sort of ground everybody again. It's not the Emmys. It's not the Oscars. It's not.
I mean, we got to remember that even at the Golden Globes and the Oscars, especially the Golden Globes, the comedian that hosts the show takes shots at the people in the crowd and shots at Hollywood in general. And you need someone, a host of this, that's going to take shots at the people in the crowd for humor's sake. But gosh, you got the impression in a while Disney like, hey, we can make fun of other people, but we can't make fun of ourselves. And that's just a turnoff at these.
I thought
these
that I'm just glad Deshaun Watson wasn't there. He might have charged the stage. But anyway, okay.
He's also made himself an easy target. I mean, that's what those people have to realize. He made himself an easy target, and this is part of taking the medicine. And part of, by the way, it helps you. It helps you in the public to see him take his lumps. That's when you get forgiven and invited back. Is when you watch these people take their lumps, and you're like, all right, everything's good now.
And I guess in the end, if somebody goes to Deshaun Watson and says, "How do you sleep at night?" he gives the Rainier Wolfcastle answer from The Simpsons: "On top of a pile of money with many beautiful ladies." But anyway, okay. So the other thing that I liked, and this was so Saban-esque, and I've been saying all along that whoever the next coach is, they probably need to go like a complete 180, or as my friend used to say, a complete 190 away from Nick Saban, because you can't be Nick Saban. But I thought this was very Saban-esque. The players had a retort for Thomas Castellanos, and it was essentially the disrespect will be addressed. And that's it. And that's perfect. Because that is frightening. If Tim Keenan came to me and said, "Your disrespect will be addressed," I'd go, "Oh God." I would go find a new identity. So, and then there's also the video out there of Thomas Castellanos seeing Isaiah Horton.
Yep.
And first of all, there were some people getting on Horton for not being cold shouldery enough to him, maybe, which I thought was kind of silly. Like, Isaiah Horton also just got to Alabama, by the way. I mean, he might end up a Bammer. He ain't a Gump yet. But I thought it was funny. Thomas Castellanos was caught on film saying, "Hey, look, I kind of only said that because we were 2-10 last year, and somebody's got to say something to light a fire under this crowd," which immediately takes the sting off what he said. If you ask me, like, if I were his teammate, I'd be like, "Oh, so you really don't feel that way? You just said that." You know what I mean?
So much of the animosity in college football, one of the reasons college football is so great, is the animosity is fans and fan bases. Yeah. The players are all kind of in the same pot, working together, working out, trying to improve. A lot of them are buddies. A lot of them become buddies. They have a lot of commonality. I think the pot shots and the trash talking is more for fans, but Castellanos did open the door.
We've all been there. Logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal, Gametime Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. And with Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed.
For the 5th time in 3 weeks, South Carolina misses out on another blue chip recruit.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This has become a trend, and it's very frustrating. I think the easy thing to do, to be honest, it was my first reaction, was to text Billy Lucci of Tex Ags and say, how much did you guys give him? Like, what's the NIL package for that guy? Because that felt like that was a lock. I mean, a South Carolina native from Rock Hill leaving to go to College Station. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that they put up a fence around the state by any means, but they've done a pretty damn good job of coming close to that, and that is what their intentions have been. So, it just feels like thank God the Noah Clark commitment announcement happened, and it's kind of what we were alluding to a couple weeks back, because I don't think it's time to be concerned necessarily. I think it's just you're in a little bit of a rut, and a lot of guys that you thought you probably had an inside track on, especially with how like familiar you were with like the campus. I mean, like, listen, South Carolina recruiting this kid, his first offer was like his 9th or 10th grade year to Charlotte. And then South Carolina came in, got him into camp, did their eval, offered him right off the bat in, I think, June of that summer. Then he started getting more Power 4 teams coming along, coming around, seeing the tape, hearing the stuff, like hearing the hype, and more offers started rolling in. But, I mean, A&M didn't get involved until October, right? A lot of times it feels like, especially with like the players who usually tend to stay home, the earlier you get in on a kid and start showing that kind of attention, like from an early age, like everyone's going to roll out the red carpet when they're 5 stars and they're 17, 18 years old, junior and senior year, and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it resonates and hits deeper with some of these recruits if you were one of the first to offer. And South Carolina did that. So, you know, I think there was also a little bit of not an issue, but just like a difference in where he was set to play for both teams. He's listed as a safety. He looks like a defensive back. However, that being said, A&M pitched him on the idea of him playing linebacker at A&M. So, you know, maybe you shouldn't be shocked. And again, I don't want to sit here and just completely throw A&M under the bus and not give them any credit and say, you know, like, well, clearly they just went out and bought a player. But here's the deal. It's very hard, especially with the guys you've missed on over the last couple of weeks. PJ Dean, Carter Meadows. Now here, the safety from Samari Matthews from last week. It's not like you're losing out on those guys to Clemson or Florida or, you know, like teams like that. You've lost 5 recruits over the past couple of weeks, and you've lost them to Michigan, Texas A&M, and Georgia. And outside of Georgia, it doesn't feel like the other 4 probably stood as good of a chance at landing those players without their NIL packages being involved. You know, it like, and again, I'm speaking purely out of speculation, but we've all seen how A&M operates from a recruiting and booster and donor standpoint, and what they're trying to do with the NIL, and they're making a huge push. They're giving Elko the resources right now as he goes into year 2, and they have a really, really good class. But 6'4", 201 listed as a safety. That's a small linebacker, guys. It's a small linebacker. But you know, some people really like A&M. Some people there's a reason why they get recruits to go there all the time. So I guess tip your cap to Mike Elko and obviously staff don't stop recruiting, because that was one that felt like it was a lock, or at least a very heavy lean for a while. Then you started hearing over the weekend that might not have been the case, and things were changing differently and very quickly. And the mood went from being 70-75% confidence he's going to go to South Carolina to all of a sudden over the weekend, oh man, this is like snowball effect or avalanche, into it feels like it's almost a done deal for him to go to A&M. Beamer and the staff, they were in communication with him and his family up until the last couple of days, trying to make a last push. So there's still five months till signing day. I keep saying that. I will say this. Again, I do not think it's time to panic, but it does kind of feel like you're falling behind, especially considering not just judging yourself from the peers around you, because that's not always the best way to judge how good of a job you're doing and assess how you're doing. But I mean, it seems like everybody has gotten on a roll. Florida's about to go on a roll. Tennessee got four commitments in, I think last week. Georgia, obviously, with what they did in June. Bama, A&M. It just feels like you're kind of being a little bit left behind. That Landon Duckworth announcement cannot get here fast enough. But I don't know. I don't know if it's something that needs to be overthought and worried about, because there's still so much time to signing day. And again, we're less than 50 days from the season and the players that are going to be on the field this year. And that is what I'm most excited about. But yeah, it's just an odd thing. And then this, being kicked while you're down, you look at On3 and Rivals now that they are, like, I guess, one cohesive company. I don't know. Either way, On 3, if you go to the site, Rivals is the one in charge. Like, when you go to like the actual pages for like team rankings, player rankings, it's like branded as Rivals. It's very confusing. Either way, not important. But On 3 and Rivals redid their top 300 for the 2026 class and re-ranked them and all that kind of stuff. And as soon as they did, Carter Meadows jumps up to like number 5 in the country. I don't think there was a drastic change for a ton of, like, for any South Carolina commits or players like that, but they did drop 13 spots in the team rankings. They went from 18 to 31. Now, the silver lining with that is you are 31st in the country right now, but you're still sitting there with 10 commits. 7 of those are 4 stars. You still have the highest blue chip ratio and the highest per player ranking that you've had in over a decade, maybe in program history. Like, I mean, so it's still a lot to be happy about. But at the same time, it's just confusing because like they're ranked 31st in the country in like their overall rankings, especially with only 10 commits. But when you look at the per player ranking, they're still top 10 nationally. So we'll look into it. I don't think it's something that like it's not going to do us any good to panic about it, but it is a trend, and it's something to at least be aware of. When we come back, I do want to point out one other positive about the per player rankings, the way it's broken down, and where Carolina stands with their class in terms of what's the best way to put it? Quality instead of quantity, but there's also a very glaring difference between South Carolina and every other team in that top 10, and it's not a good thing.